So our friend David says, I had a question regarding how the pilgrimage feasts were observed in the first century. I'm not sure if TR has already done something on this. We haven't done something specific on this. Anyway, some people will claim that Paul wasn't really Torah observant because he doesn't appear to have always made a pilgrimage to Jerusalem during unleavened bread, Shavuot, and Sukkot during some years. Okay, first of all, let's stop right there. This is important. To think that people came up, and they didn't, but to think that people came up for all three festivals is we have no evidence for this. In fact, in the Gospels, it would seem as though Yeshua and his family came up once a year, as was their custom for Passover. They came up for the Passover, as was their custom. We have nothing saying that they came up and think about this, okay? If you're in the very north, of Israel. Now, I know that traveling in Israel is easier because it's such a small country, right? But still, it's a long ways. You're talking about, especially on foot, you're talking about days' journeys, like days, not a day, like days. So to think that somebody comes down, to think that they're there for Passover, and how long are they there for? Are they just there for the first night, or are they there for the full 8 days? Okay. And then what? They go back home? It takes them what? With kids and a caravan and everything, takes them what? 5 days? So you're talking 10 days out there and back. You're talking about possibly 8 days there, like in Jerusalem. Now you go back, and by the time you get back, you have how many days left? I mean, you do the math, right? You're already 13 days out. So now what? You're going to turn back around and come back down for Shavuot? Be down here for a night, and now you go back, so that's 11 days right there. And then you're going to wait and you come back for Sukkot? The logistics of this are not, we just don't have evidence that people were actually making that journey all the time.
Yeah, and we don't have information too. Like we lack information on that. For example, John the Baptist, it says that he went and was in the wilderness all the way until the time of his ministry began. So, that to me means that John the Baptist, who was a Cohen, right? I mean, he's son of Zechariah. He's the son of Aaron, but he's out in the wilderness. He's not participating in the calendar. He's not participating in the three
right
feast days.
Not only that, but David frames this question really well. He goes on, he says, for instance, after Paul's conversion, he went to Arabia for 3 years, Galatians 1:17. Then he went to Jerusalem to stay with Peter, 1:18. Then after this, he did not go to Jerusalem for another 14 years, 2:1. The people who bring up such an objection to Torah observance would probably frame their argument this way. The Torah requires a pilgrimage to Jerusalem for unleavened bread, Shavuot, and Sukkot. Number 2, there was a period of 3 years and another period of 14 years where Paul did not go to Jerusalem. And number 3, therefore, Paul did not faithfully keep the pilgrimage feast. What about Yeshua? Didn't Yeshua's family go down to Egypt for what? Scholars say 2 to 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
but you'd have to also say that when Yeshua sent in Acts 1, he sent them out to the Jerusalem,
nations, yeah.
Judea, Samaria, even to the ends of the earth. He's not expecting them 3 times a year to go to Jerusalem.
Right.
He can't be expecting that. There's just it
so
wouldn't make sense. And there's no evidence that he did expect that.
And here's the point, is that basically scholars and good scholars, so for instance, E.P. Sanders in his book on Judaism, I think it's, here it is. Judaism, Practice and Belief, 63 BCE to 66 CE. He makes the argument that that anyone outside of Jerusalem did not come up for the feast. They felt that if a person came up once in their lifetime, they had fulfilled the commandment. And so that would be the diaspora Jews. This actually makes sense because when Paul writes to the Corinthians, right, he doesn't expect them all to come. By the way, it's 400 nautical miles from Corinth, and that's not going around. You have to go around if you don't take a boat. But it's 400 miles to Jerusalem from Corinth. So the idea of someone walking, that'd be like me walking to Spokane from Tacoma. That's a 5-hour drive, let alone, it's even more than that, right? Because what, is it 250 miles to Spokane? So it's even more than that. Anyway, the point is that Paul doesn't seem to expect the Corinthians to make the pilgrimage to Jerusalem and he doesn't even make it. And so then the question is what about the people inside of Israel? Well, if they were close enough, obviously they were coming up. They were coming up to Jerusalem. Passover was the pinnacle celebration of the entire year. The most people came up for Passover. We know from Josephus, well, there's different accounts. Some people say 200,000 were in the city of Jerusalem, all the way up to 1 million people. Some people claim 1 million people. So the Passover festival was the pinnacle festival for Judaism in the first century. This is not the case with Sukkot. Certainly people came up for it, right? But not like they did for Passover. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking the subscribe button and check out more videos from Messiah Matters.